In the year 2000, small developing team Player One released Hercules, the legendary journeys for Nintendo 64 through the publishing company Titus. The game was based on the television show of the same name, a show often dwarfed in conversation by its more successful spin-off, Xena Warrior Princess. The game version, similarly, does not get much attention. It's heavily inspired by Ocarina of Time, to put it lightly, has less than enjoyable combat mechanics, and a frustrating story progression. But underneath all those turnoffs lies a decent framework of movement that makes running around the world pretty enjoyable, especially Hercules' dive achieved by pressing jump and punch at the same time. This is a speedrun of the game in 59 minutes and 17 seconds, the first time it has been beaten in under an hour. The goal of the game is to obtain the 4 hearts of the main bosses of the game and obtain the 6 medallions to reach Mount Olympus. This, along with some other necessary purchases, requires 1,000 dinars, which we will grind for right at the start of the run. I start the game off by jumping on top of a hay bale, clipping through an invisible wall to get on top of the barn, jumping through the roof to get outside on top of a trough, then clipping to the top of a barn to skip to the end of the game's tutorial. I'll explain everything that just happened in a second, but this is where we will grind for money. It takes a few minutes, so I want to set the stage and give a bit of history. In the speedrunning world, the first person to notice Hercules 64 was a player named Zenik Reverie. A runner with many games under his belt, Zenik received the game as part of a game exchange with other speedrunners. Developing the first speedrun for the Speed Demos Archive website, Zenik discovered the first glitch in the game, that in extreme lag you could phase through walls with enough speed. He would spend his time resetting, diving into the first gate in the game, hoping to clip through. He also discovered a glitch called a double jump, but didn't quite use it to its full potential in his run. He ended up beating the game in an hour and 24 minutes, submitting it to SDA. This was in 2011, and nobody else would touch the game for almost 8 years. That's when I first had interest in the game as a young college student. This period where I learned the game led to more glitches being discovered, ones that I can now use to explain what happened at the start of this run. Firstly, pauses are broken. By approaching any inbounds wall and pausing just before colliding with it, Hercules shoots forward, consistently clipping through it. It immediately fixed the random lag clipping at a low cost of 1 pause. This also applies to jumping. For ledges just out of reach, by pausing at the apex of your jump without colliding with the wall, you can gain extra height. This is used many times throughout the run to reach areas sooner or get out of bounds. Lastly, the potential of the double jump that Zenik discovered was realized. By interacting with something and pressing the jump button before the text box appears, Hercules begins to jump and then snaps back to the ground. When the text box closes, the jump will resume, however Hercules will be in a grounded state, allowing him to jump a second time in the air. We use this during the grind as we complete this brief combat tutorial, gaining 50 dinars per completion. We need 700 before we can leave the area, as there are 3 chests we can find along the way with 100 dinars in each, getting us to our 1,000 total we need. It's a 2-frame window for each of these double jumps to get that R press, so while it's not the most difficult thing in the world, not messing up at all throughout the 12 times can be a challenge. If you do miss the double jump, climbing the ladder loses about 4 to 5 seconds. Not the end of the world. Continuing on with the speedrun discovery, I eventually took the record from Zenik in 2019. Through various trick discoveries and route improvements with the help of speedrunner Fenriquez, I brought the time down to an hour and 12 minutes. Quite the improvement, and the consistency of the pause glitches helped a ton in achieving it. That record would stay itself for 4 years, and in that time I was convinced no one would ever touch this game again. But in 2024, a player by the name of Giga found interest in the game and single-handedly discovered a trick that rivaled the pause clip in terms of time save, which we won't be able to see until the very end of the run. With this huge time save as well as improving at the game overall, Giga took the world record, lowering it all the way down to a 103 by mid-2025. Giga sparked new life into the run, even having Hercules' debut at a marathon at SGDQ 2025. Call it unfinished business or just the fact I couldn't let this weird game go, but I picked the game back up again at the beginning of this year. In that time period I was away, the prototype ROM of Hercules was dumped, and it featured a level select, making it a great practice tool for the game. This made optimizing specific parts of the game way easier. I also learned that my N64 joystick was actually slowing me down, so swapping the stick immediately brought a ton of time save. And with that, the coveted sub 1 hour was finally in reach. We reach our 700 dinars, double jump for the final time, and exit the starting farm. This is the first record I achieved where I hit all 12 double jumps without messing up. Not bad. The run can now begin. We're heading over to our first town, Trachis. The first of many enemies are here, but we just dive past them. You'll be hearing a lot of yelling, "Hey!" as you dive past the enemies throughout the run, so be sure to say "hey" back. We pause clip past the 2 walls up ahead, and head to open our first chest. These enemies, interestingly enough, are the only ones to my knowledge that have this bizarre money-stealing property. You never have to worry about it in the speedrun since you just run past them, but it's interesting nonetheless. Going through the swamp here introduces our next glitch, Z standing. For years, you would just slowly trudge through this swamp staring at the rear end of these swamp monsters. Diving is disabled while in this slow walking state. But we learned that by correcting the camera with Z, Hercules is once again briefly set to the standing position, and there's a tiny window where you can long jump. It's incredibly inconsistent with the lag here, but even with the many accidental punches, it still saves a ton of time over walking. We pick up our second chest here. I want to take this time to say this run is far from perfect, and you will see many imperfections. If after watching this you think you can beat this time, I would love to see it. Inspiring people to try this game is the main goal of this commentary. In lieu of a traditional targeting system like in Ocarina of Time, Hercules has this magnet system where if you get close to an enemy, NPC, or barrel like what just happened, Hercules will face towards them while punching or diving. Picking up the third chest, we reach our 1,000 dinars needed for the run. In a true showcase of how unfinished this game was upon release, those are the only chests in the whole game that contain money. Money does have one other use in the game besides story progression, where you can buy magic potions from any tavern in a town. While there are some fun glitches with them, they have no use in a speedrun. We have reached Trachis. There's multiple things we have to do here before we can fight the boss in the area, including getting our first medallion. The route for this area was actually different for many years, but was optimized using pause clipping through a gate to save time. We have to stop in this house to pick up a letter. It's not needed to beat the boss in this town, but it's needed to enter a dungeon later in the game, so we're picking it up now. Here's the first of 5 buyable medallions. Each one costs 100 dinars, and a guy like this is located in each major town to buy from. We obtain the 6th medallion after beating the 5th boss of the game. Here we do a Z stand to jump out of the river here. Cover your ears, Melee players, because we call that a Z jump. Turning in the last piece of this little trade quest gets us our key to the boss lair, the Cyclops. We used to fight this boss way differently, running from his attacks and being careful with our punches. It wasn't until more recently that we learned it's better to just wail on him with no care for safety and use the insanely broken block mechanic Hercules has for his ground pound. You'll get to see just how powerful this block is later on. After each boss fight, the game plays a brief little cutscene like this. The only button to advance text is A, so you just mash with one button. Now that the water is flowing through the town again, we have to backtrack a tiny bit and enter a cave. Here we see Aeolus, the second playable character of the game. We will use him for a few different sections. He doesn't have a dive mechanic like Hercules, so we'll just have to run with him. The enemies here are super friendly, always saying hey.
Hey! 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 Hey!
This is the town of Nespa. There's a long trading quest here involving capturing a missing cat and baking a pie for someone to unlock a secret area, but the area is actually easily accessible by either a double jump or a pause clip. I use a double jump here since it's slightly faster. Unlocking this chest gives the last piece of the trade quest, which we can use to free the mayor of this town, trapped in a spell. Freeing him gives us the key to the city of Thrace, our next area we need to go. We also buy the second medallion on our way out. You might notice that we do a lot of our pausing and menuing inside buildings when possible. The lag in an area does persist even when on the pause screen, and indoors areas tend to have the least lag, so we save time by taking care of our items in low lag areas.
Hey! Hey! Hey!
Switching back to Hercules, I take an extra bit of time to run around to either side of him before talking to him. When exiting dialogue, the camera will snap back to behind wherever the character is. We use this throughout the run to set up our position quicker after talking to things. We have to pause and equip the key to the city, so why not save time by clipping through this building during that pause? On the road to Thrace here, we have to flip 5 switches before the door opens to the city. This simple task hides the biggest choke point in the game for casual fans and even early speedrunners, the hill jump. The developers messed up this simple jump before the third target, making it an incredibly difficult jump requiring perfect precision on the edge of the platform. On emulators, the jump is basically impossible. Thankfully, with our handy dandy double jump, we can get out of bounds, cross the bridge where the archer is and reach the third target from the other side, avoiding that jump completely. I also really quick wanted to show this trick called the ladder jump, where Hercules is briefly grounded after releasing from a ladder, so we can jump from it to skip some of the climbing animation. We do another double jump on the fourth target here as well for a quick trip out of bounds to the fifth target. With that, the city opens. We're in this deserted city of Thrace many times throughout the run. For this visit, we buy our third medallion and talk to an NPC in a building to buy a piece of calf skin. We have to give this item to someone, so we equip it while still in the shop here to reduce lag. That person is a tailor back in Trachis, who will take our leather and turn it into a coat. Thankfully, there's a waterfall shortcut on the path back to Trachis, so we don't have to spend a long time getting back there. Upon giving the leather to the tailor, he gives you the coat, but it turns out to be too small for Hercules to wear. We have to equip the key every time we need to exit here, so I spend the time doing that indoors once again. Here's one of the most important pause jumps in the game, the cliff jump. This ledge is normally meant to be a one-way exit, but with a frame-perfect pause jump here, we can clip up top, saving a ton of time. We have to do this a few times in the run, so making sure you don't waste too much time here is important. That archer up top can make Hercules magnet in their direction, so I make sure to be directly under them when diving through. Back in Thrace, we once again entrust the help of our trusty friend Aeolus to use the small coat. There's a snowy place called Alpsius that's essential to the run, and we will be making our first of many visits there. Sections like this where you're just running with Aeolus are the main parts where a good control stick is essential. My mind was blown when I swapped controllers and saved over 30 seconds of time on these sections, just in the difference of speed. There's a point later in the run where you do need precise aiming, so I will be swapping controllers, similar to how Mario 64 speedrunners do for Bowser throws, for that part. But for now, Aeolus just needs to flip a switch to unlock the gate and enter Alpsius. Once inside, nobody will talk to Aeolus except for one NPC, another leather salesman. This time, the leather is large enough to fashion to a coat for Hercules, and I think you can piece together what the next section of the game is here. Tedious back and forths are a large complaint about this game by many players, and with the current route not having a real sequence break for it, I can understand their complaints. Over the years, the movement of the game has kept me interested in optimizing these back and forth routes, but I certainly wouldn't be opposed if something was found to speed things up. Quite a bit of work was done recently to uncover how the game works using an emulator and memory editing tools, and while none of it led to breaking the game wide open, it gave some great leads. For instance, we learned that a huge amount of the game's interact dialogue is on one large array, spanning from the first door of the tutorial to the warp to the final boss. It was fun changing one byte of data and going straight to the end of the game while in the tutorial. We also learned that the warp to Olympus after obtaining everything is present on the map immediately, just not activated. It certainly feels like there has to be ways to break this game wide open, we just haven't found it yet. Donned with the large coat, Hercules can now enter Alpsius. With this cliff jump, we use the pause to equip the letter that we picked up earlier, as it's almost time to use it to unlock the first of the 3 dungeons in the game. Movement is important here as it is always, as there's lots of corners we want to tightly navigate around but not run into. You probably have noticed that I jump into first person a lot of the time. When diving, you cannot change Hercules' position normally. You're locked into going that direction until the animation finishes. You can, however, press C right to enter first person mode, and move left or right there to adjust your position while diving. In a perfect setting, this would always be the best movement option, diving constantly to be at max speed and going into first person to adjust your angle around corners. But in practice, the lag will oftentimes drop your C right input, or you aren't able to react enough in time to actually move optimally with it. I still use it occasionally where I think it helps, like in the tunnel after the cliff jump. We turn in the letter to this NPC here, who gives us the Torch of Prometheus. While it sounds powerful, it's just the key to a first dungeon. The dungeon's located back at Thrace, so let's scramble down the mountain to get there. It's marginally faster to cut through the middle of town here and use a pause clip to equip the torch and reach the door. All three dungeons are tight execution tests with pause clipping, and despite this one's briefness, it is certainly stressful. Without pause clipping, the game expects you to punch through all of these walls. Each wall takes multiple full charge punches to break, so clipping saves a ton of time. All that's needed to open the boss door is press 2 panels in the correct order, so once we do that, we can fight the Minotaur. By running around to the other side to lure the Minotaur to the lava pit, punching him one time, the Minotaur clips into the lava and we beat the boss in a matter of seconds. Normally you are meant to take all the boss's HP down and throw him into the lava, but the ring around it is coated so poorly that they clip in quite consistently. If you're unlucky, the boss could block your attack, charging at you afterwards, wasting about 10 seconds, but all you have to do is lure him back and try again. With that kill, we've obtained our first of 4 hearts. In order to progress the game and move forward with the story, we need to return to Alpsius. You might have noticed we didn't pick up a medallion while we were there previously. We're going to do that now. You'll see at the end of this path I accidentally lag clipped through the door to get into Alpsius. There's a whole unused area of the game behind this door, including a second entrance blocked by a rock, but there's no load trigger present. No clue why it's there. Once inside Alpsius, we head into this cave in the mountain and speak to Hephaestus. This NPC gives us all the items needed to progress the story from here, so we'll be visiting him a few times. Did I mention this game was rushed? Up at the top of this winding staircase is our 4th medallion. Below is a man we have to show the rune we just acquired to get a key. This key actually unlocks the path to Nespa we visited before with Aeolus, but now we're playing as Hercules.
Hey! Hey! Hey!
Since we skipped the trade quest in this town earlier, the cat is still here and you might be able to hear it. If you attempt to catch the cat with Hercules, you will crash the game. So instead, we'll just enter the second dungeon, located at the back of town. This dungeon is probably the most difficult part of the game to do quickly. It's a simple maze with keys and chests, but each chest is behind 2 walls very close to each other. Pause clipping through one of them is simple enough, but the camera usually leaves you blind for the second one, so you either have to wait or just hope that you clip through. Mistakes happen a lot here. If you miss a pause clip, you just do a little circle around and try again, hoping to pause before you collide with a wall. We break down this door the old-fashioned way since we actually passed through it 5 times in the run. We realized it's actually worth it to break it down to save 5 pauses. The time difference isn't huge, but any less room for error in this dungeon helps a lot. Here the lag was so bad it not only ate my pause input, but also clipped me through the wall on its own. If we could consistently dive clip without pausing through here, you could save a lot of time, but it's unfortunately very inconsistent. I just got lucky. While normally you can run past most enemies, being in these tight quarters actually makes them quite tough to deal with. You can get stuck being bashed over and over by NPCs, especially if you miss a pause clip. We have to equip a key each time we reach another chest, but thankfully we spend most of the time in this dungeon pausing, so there's always plenty of opportunity to equip a key. The second dungeon boss is once again a Minotaur. You have to hit one of the gongs to temporarily raise the lava here. The pit in the center is built a bit more sturdy, so we can't just punch him in, but there's a more humorous solution. By getting him stuck opposite us and simply running away, the game tries to free him by making him jump over whatever is blocking him, directly leading to his doom. With that, we obtain our second heart. Off to Alpsius once again to get what we need to start the third dungeon. Interestingly, the area we need to go in is available as early as the first visit to Thrace, but because we need this rune from Hephaestus to enter the dungeon, there's no need to go there before retrieving the rune. It's a good thing to take note of if a sequence break is found surrounding Hephaestus. Just a thought. I mentioned earlier about how you can crash the game by trying to pick up the cat with Hercules. There are actually many ways to crash the game consistently, some without even performing any glitches. The first crash I discovered back in 2019, where if you let the timer in the tutorial section fall to 0 as you are leaving the farm area, the game will try to display the text box as the room transitions, causing a crash. There's also a point later on where we can get a playable character to locations normally only meant to be accessed by Hercules, and interacting with various objects can crash the game as well. Now that we received that rune we need, it's off to our next area. On the topic of glitch hunting, while we were messing around in a memory editor for this game, we discovered multiple unused items and even a whole collectible in the data. There were equipable item versions of each medallion taking on the presence of a teddy bear, an unused silver arrow item, as well as these 6 mysterious rings. No one knows where they're from or what they do, but it was very interesting finding them in the game's code. Here on the beach path, it's very important that we get out of bounds here. There's a rare bit of platforming here with bottomless pits that kill you instantly. Hercules has 1 life, and the game spits you back at the title screen if you die. We can't waste any time and save in a speedrun like this, so the platforming section is not only usually slower, but very dangerous. Thankfully, a lip of the wall here is so low that we can jump out of bounds without even needing to pause. Thanks to having backups and only one of them being slower, there's only one part of the game where we cannot avoid jumping over a bottomless pit, which you'll see later. Welcome to Santa Manicus. This is my favorite part of the game, just a quick trade quest with interesting tricks and jumps in it. This boat jump, while not difficult, is super easy to misjudge and fall in the water. There's some weird property that we don't understand with this water where you can't Z-stand to jump out of it, so if you fall in, you have to swim all the way back to shore. I got overly confident and looked away from the screen after the first boat jump and fell in on the way back. Nice going. Here's a tricky jump that we get out of bounds for. I hold Z here to line it up to make it easier, but this jump is still very easy to fail. Next, we talk to this lady to get a fishing net, which we equip soon after. One more boat jump and we exchanged the 2 items we obtained. We had to spend money on one of them, but the nice lady pays us back for it. We receive an oyster here that we have to give to an oyster shucker, and we do a tricky pause jump up top by standing on a slight bit of elevated terrain. The trick is to actually be less high up on the terrain and to be closer to the docks themselves. We receive a pearl in the oyster. We head inside the tavern to finish the trade quest. There's a tavern in most towns where you purchase magic, as I said earlier, but this is the only time where you need to visit one for story purposes. We place a key to open the dungeon door, grab our 5th and final buyable medallion, and enter the 3rd dungeon. Alright, this is the most difficult dungeon, but a lot more fun to play than the second one. There's a lot of spike doors and blocks that can crush you, but now it's time to show off the true power of Hercules' block. This thing removes almost all the danger from the dungeon, negating a ton of damage from these spiky doors and preventing instant kills from crushing blocks and spike walls. We have to obtain 3 keys in the first section, and the third key is the location of our unavoidable lava jump. This is the one area of the game where we can't get around risking death, and it is infamous. In particularly unlucky cases, the lag can cause Hercules to downwarp here and kill runs instantly. Thankfully we survive and continue on in the dungeon. We exchange our keys for 3 larger keys, thrilling I know, and move on in the dungeon. These large blocks are a one-hit kill if we get crushed by them, and while blocking can prevent death, it can actually get you stuck inside of them, soft-locking the game. After we collect that key, we pause clip through this block and equip it. Next is this massive spike wall. Before we realized how broken the block was, we feared this wall a ton as it moves quickly and kills in one hit. But now if we find ourselves in cycle with the wall, we just hit C down and move on. We place those 3 larger keys in their locks and the 1 extra key in the 1 soccer show and move on to the final puzzle. We just have to push the 3 panels to unlock the door. The boss of the 3rd dungeon is, you guess it, another Minotaur. I guess the original intention of the boss was to have you break these 4 pillars to spawn the lava, then throw the Minotaur in the lava once you take down all of his HP, but you can just break 1 pillar, hide behind the lava, and the Minotaur just runs into it. For some reason the Minotaur got a bit stuck for this kill, but it only cost a few seconds. We receive the 3rd heart, only 1 more to go. I'm sure you know where we're heading next. This is my personal least favorite visit to Hephaestus since we have to head right back to this beach path after getting the next and final rune. At least there's a nice early spot to get out of bounds here to avoid that platforming. At this point in the run, you can see that the mistakes are coming more common. I wish I could say I wasn't nervous already, but on this day of attempts, I had already choked 2 runs on pace for sub 1 hour, so I was hoping that I could at least put this one together. Despite all the imperfections of the run so far, I was comfortably on pace for a 59-minute run, maybe even a 58. One of the best parts about the Hercules speedrun is its lack of RNG elements. While it's certainly full of frustrating things, it's nice mostly relying on execution and good routing to get good times in this game. This next section is unfortunately not like that. We're about to switch to our third and final character, the Golden Hind, Serena. Serena is a very unique character with a ranged bow with multiple aiming types. We have to fight the fifth boss with her, and it's where I will be swapping controllers to help precisely aim. The goal of this boss, the Titan, is to shoot the targets around the room to spray it with water, eventually taking it out. There's no quick kill or glitch with this fight, so it all comes down to your aiming and being able to dodge its attacks. We like to immediately shoot the first target as soon as the fight begins, but for some reason the game bugged out and I was unable to shoot it from the position I was in. In typical speedrun fashion, I'd never had this happen before. Off to a panic start, I eventually get the first two targets and splash the Titan with water. The Titan has 3 attacks: breathing fire, shooting fire from its hand, and throwing a rock. The rock is the best option as it waits around for a long time afterwards, giving plenty of time to shoot the targets. Breathing from fire in its mouth is a quick attack but doesn't leave much time before starting the next one. Maybe enough to shoot one time. Lastly, shooting from his hand is the worst attack. It has a decent windup, but it takes a long time for the move to end. Simply put, I got very unlucky this fight. My execution was not the best, especially after the shaky start, but this was the worst Titan fight I'd had in a while. We finally defeat the Titan and receive our fourth and final heart. I had lost 40 seconds compared to my last PB there. I decided I need to take a risk here. Do the risky platforming. The strat to get out of bounds from this point is the only time it's actually slower than doing the platforming, as it requires luring enemies away from the spot to jump to reduce lag and make the jump possible. I make the jump, saving about 5 to 10 seconds. Compared to my splits, I was just on the cusp of a 1 hour time, not sure at all if I could even sub-hour here. The ending of my last PB wasn't great, but after that Titan fight, I sure didn't feel like I was playing that well at all either. This was our final visit to Hephaestus. We have collected all 4 hearts, and so all that is left for him is to give us the 6th medallion, our final key to the end of the game. I don't really stream too often, especially since I rarely speedrun this game, but I was live at this point and had one of my friends from the Smash community, Shad, in chat cheering me on. Other friends tuned into past streams of mine for this grind too. It definitely kept me sane as I was resetting punching those targets at the beginning of the game. This is the last point in the game where a bunch of enemies yell hey at you. See ya, fellas. Welcome to the Garden of Shrines. Here we place all our medallions we obtain to unlock the final area, Mount Olympus. We have to place the 5 that we purchased before we can insert the 6th one we got from Hephaestus, so that's why I'm taking this weird back and forth route. By placing the 6th medallion, the portal opens. Like I mentioned earlier, this area is accessible super early on in the game, and I wish there was a way we could somehow unlock this portal sooner. In Mount Olympus, we go through these little islands, picking up gems along the way. We just have to place these 4 gems at the end of the game, so we pick them up now. The game tries to freeze you in place as these platforms descend, but pressing the Z button cancels it out, allowing you to move again. There's a theoretical faster route here involving a frame-perfect pause jump on top of the save house, but I lost 30 seconds on a previous world record pace run going for it, so I take the vanilla path here. We once again switch to Serena to take on the second to last boss, Braxus the Dragon. I swap controllers here once again. Serena has 3 different attack styles that you can change by hitting C right, and the third one allows you to simply hit things with a crosshair like in FPS. We aim at the dragon's head to do more damage and take it out quickly. Even after the dragon breathes fire, the hurt box for its head stays in the same place, which is why it looks like I'm shooting at the air. I swap controllers back here. I lost a fair bit of time on the dragon fight in my previous PB, so I saw I was once again back on sub 1 pace. All that's left here is to switch back to Hercules and take on Ares, the final boss. Remember how I said Giga found an insane trick that rivals the pause clip in terms of time save? It's finally time to see it in action. The final fight is split into 3 phases. Once you knock Ares to half health, he teleports away and you have to fight many waves of enemies before Ares spawns back in with 2 clones that you have to kill. The whole fight took over 4 minutes, but more like 6 in a typical run. Here's what Giga discovered. You can hit Ares with one of these barrels, which does a huge chunk of damage, more than any of Hercules' attacks. Once Ares nears half health, you use Hercules' grapple attack by holding forward and B on a stunned enemy, then mash A to interrupt Ares' teleport with a throw. By throwing him and immediately punching him, you skip the second and third phase. It's very easy to fail, so I'm freaking out at this point after successfully performing the phase skip. You can definitely do the fight faster from here, but if you mess up grabbing or throwing Ares again from here, he will resume teleporting away and kill the run. So I knock him down to a range where a second barrel will kill, line it up, and finish him off. The timer stops on the last text box, and that's time. Hercules: The Legendary Journeys on Nintendo 64 completed in less than an hour for the first time ever. I brought it up throughout the run, but I can't stress enough how I honestly feel like this game is begging to be broken wide open. We just need some fresh pairs of eyes to see it. If you have experience in glitch hunting, speedrunning, or just want to check this weird game out, come by our Hercules speedrunning Discord server and let's work together. Same thing if you want to have a go at taking over this time. At the time of recording, there's only 5 submitted runs for the game on speedrun.com. There's a full written guide on the site as well as a detailed spreadsheet breakdown of the route on our Discord server to help people get started, and we're available to answer any questions someone might have about the game. Come by and say, hey. While only a few people have ran this game, there are many to thank for developing the run to this point. Zenik for laying the groundwork and posting the first runs on SDA, which showed the game to me and others. Giga for giving this game a chance, pushing me to the limit and showing the game to so many others at GDQ. Fenriquez for innovating a lot of the early routes and developing the double jump grind strat, one of the biggest time saves and skill ceilings in the run. Peanuts for, in his brief time trying the game, developed the hay bale strat we used at the start of the run. Unhero for joining us in the 20th anniversary race and helping improve the run in the 2019 to 2020 era. The Forest of Illusion Preservation team for dumping the prototype ROM that was the real key to improve at the game to get sub 1. And lastly to my friends for supporting me in whatever silly thing I get way too into. Star, Messi, Shad, Joey, and many, many more. I want to give one final shout out, and that's to the user Hector on speedrun.com. When someone complained about this game erroneously being included in the Disney category of games on the website, he responded with one of the greatest comments on the entirety of speedrun.com. Cry about it, bitch. Thanks for watching.